Welcome to Accountable, where your business is our business. Hosted by David R. Peters. Today's guest is Steve Watson.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Accountable, the podcast for CFOs by a CFO. My name's Dave. Thanks so much for being here. We have a great episode today. Today, we're going to be talking about employee benefits. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking to yourself, you know what, Dave? We hear about employee benefits as CFOs and controllers and financial leaders. We hear about employee benefits all the time, especially around open enrollment time. You know, that's the time when we hear from our insurance brokers and the folks that are helping us put together benefits packages. That's probably what you're thinking, right? Well, that may be true, but you haven't heard about benefits in the way that we're going to be talking about it today. My guest on Accountable this week is Steve Watson. Steve is in the Phoenix, Arizona area. He is the CFO of Child and Family Support Services. But in addition to being a CFO, he is someone who really has a passion for employee benefits, and specifically not just learning about employee benefits, but really trying to help CFOs, controllers, other financial leaders during the time of open enrollment, really try to get the best benefits packages together that they can for their companies, and also doing it at a good price, at a good rate. So one of the things that he's going to be talking about today is his Employee Benefits Academy, and kind of this concept that he has come up with where he's bringing financial leaders together to really learn how to negotiate good rates with insurance brokers, and also help to build the best benefits packages possible for employees. This is not an insurance broker talking to you. This is a CFO. This is one of us. This is one of our folks, one of our colleagues that has really just kind of realized that most of the time, we don't have expertise in this area. It's not like we go to school to become accountants, to become CPAs, and we really have this, this vast knowledge of employee benefits. And he didn't really, have this vast knowledge of employee benefits either. It was one of those things that he kind of fell into, but he's really developed a passion for helping financial leaders really get the best rates possible and really build the best benefits packages possible for their employees. So I think it's going to be a great conversation. We're also going to ask him about his podcast too. His podcasts are excellent. So we're going to be talking about all that stuff. Enjoy my conversation with Steve Watson. My guest this week on Accountable is Steve Watson. Hi, Steve.
How are you doing? I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you here because I got to tell you, you are a bit of a unique guest, I think, in probably in more ways than one. But
because I have 7 kids, right? That's unique.
That is unique. That is unique for sure.
Yeah.
But your professional career, I think, is very interesting because you're an accountant that got interested in benefits. And, and I got to tell you, I think that this is a unique thing because, you and I were talking before we hit the record button here. I think a lot of CFOs and probably a lot of people out in accountable land, they probably feel this way. They get a lot of their benefits information from brokers. They get a lot of their they get a lot of it from HR reps and things like that. That's not you. So, so how did you get started? How did you get interested in benefits?
Yeah. So my story was I became a CFO of a social work company in Arizona, about 500 employees. And a year into my tenure, the HR director quit. And they looked at me and said, HR finance, about the same thing. We'll give it to you. And I'm like, I don't know in what world you think HR and finance the same thing. But so I started wearing both hats. And right after that, I had my first employee benefits renewal. And I was wearing both hats, both the employee side and the HR side, as well as the accounting side. And my broker came to me and said, unfortunately, you had a really high claim. You're going to have a 30% rate increase. And unfortunately, we can't. There's nobody else who wants to quote your business. And I'm like, 30%? I mean, 30%. And so that finance side of me, the alarm bells are going off because like that's hundreds of thousands of dollars I'm going to have to go find somewhere to pay for these same benefits that I have.
Yep.
And now the HR side of me is going off of like, how am I going to stand up in front of all my employees now and their families and say, your copay is going up, your deductible is going up, we're going to have to narrow down your network, switch carriers, and unfortunately your deduction is going to go up on your paycheck for these same benefits. And it just ticked me off. I'm like, as a CFO, I can find value in all areas of the business, but employee benefits was like this black hole. Like nobody ever taught me how to do this, and just that's what got me on this trail.
I think that's so. I mean, I think what you said there is probably a bit of a common story from the sense that like you kind of got thrown into it. I mean,
Yes.
It was not something that you were sort of formally trained for. It wasn't like, you went to school and you learned, all of these, the theory behind employee benefits. I don't even know if that's a thing, but right. But the theory behind, so you kind of got thrown into it. So it was a business need. And then it was just, I mean, for you, it was kind of sounds like it was just dollars and cents. I mean, a 30% increase, that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of money there. And so I went on this big journey trying to figure out how to save money. Ended up, and we can get into the details a little bit later, but ended up saving a whole bunch of money for my own company. Ended up thinking like that was just me. I thought everybody else was doing it. And, I started finding out more that, no, everybody was going through the same barriers I was going through. But the real thing that hit me was I have a consulting company on the side, and I became the CFO of a insurance broker was starting up his agency. And so then I got to peek behind the veil and see all the revenue they were getting, how they're getting paid, their incentives, their business model, everything like that. Really got to peek behind the veil. And that was really where the beginnings of Trendbreakers started, because I was like, if CFOs like me knew this information, they would make better decisions. But like you said, we don't have that out there. There's no unbiased stuff out there. There's no Yelp reviews, consumer reviews out there for employee benefits plans. And so I started Trendbreakers to share all that information with other people.
So I think that's an excellent point. I mean, the CFOs, again, there's not sort of like good information out there. And I think that they're kind of, flying blind here when it comes to building a benefits package. So did you kind of transition that into kind of your own work as a CFO kind of right away? Yes. And did you start kind of building better employee benefits packages? I mean, how do you build a good employee benefits package?
Well, the biggest thing that I feel like is because HR and finance have different components of that. Okay. Like nobody wants a plan just built by finance because it'll be like this bare bones package and stuff like that. And we'll recruit and retain employees is my joke that I say. Right. But nobody wants one built just by HR because it'll have every bell and whistle in there and the cost will be way out of control. Well, let's be honest. Where's most benefit plans right now? It's in HR. And we don't hire people in HR to understand risk, to be the analytical, to do those kind of things. And so where do I start is like, you got to be able to bring those two areas together. Like it can't just be in HR and it can't just be in finance. Like there has to be one person accountable for the financial aspects of that plan. So if sales were dropping every single year, somebody gets fired. Or if costs were like way out of control, somebody gets fired after a time. But employee benefits have been out of control for 20 years. And for some reason, we're just like, it's what it is and doing things. And so the very first thing is like you got to start getting some analytical chops into that thing and dealing with this stuff. And it has to come from finance. Like we need to step up to the table. That's our skill set to like peel back the onion and figure stuff out.
Right. So is that what you what you teach through the work that you're doing with Trendbreakers? Is that kind of the approach? Is trying to bring
Employee Benefits Academy is I'm
okay.
giving that course that I've learned over 10 years back to employers. And so some of the things that we talk about is the misaligned incentives between brokers and employers. And so, for example, I bring in this partner. They say that they work for me. There's no bias, stuff like that. But just think about that time where I got the 30% rate increase. So I am floored. I'm freaking out and doing stuff. But the financial incentive is my broker on this side of the table is getting ready to have a 30% raise.
Right.
Now, that point should throw you off just a little bit. So we ask our brokers to work harder, to lower our rates. But in essence, what we're doing is saying work harder, get paid less.
Right.
And so, there's a big section on broker compensation, broker alignment, figuring out how to do that stuff. talk about alternative ways to fund plans. So that's a big section of the academy teaching that. Talking about stop loss and shock claims and pharmacy and all these components of a plan and how they come together to get the best benefits but at a much lower cost.
So just to kind of clarify for the folks out there, so this is not just kind of like, here are the components of a health plan. This is also trying to get into, how do I negotiate better rates, and how do I work better with brokers?
Oh yeah, yes, and that's where the rubber meets the road. Is that relationship with your broker, the setting up the plan. I never knew that there was 5 ways to finance a health benefits plan. I always thought like the optional was like Blue Cross or like Aetna. It was like just kind of these plans or like those big carriers. But there really are 5 different ways to do it, and where companies can save a lot of money is by moving to one of these other ways to finance the plans. It doesn't impact the employees. It's just ways that you pay for it differently, and that's why it has to be a finance discussion.
Okay. All right. So I was intrigued too, because your LinkedIn profile, I got to bring this up. So what your LinkedIn profile says is, it says CFO/CHRO on a mission to help 1,000 employers break the rising trend of health insurance costs. So that's an audacious goal, folks. That's what you. But that's kind of what you're all about. You're about kind of bringing CFOs, kind of bringing kind of peeling back the curtain a little bit, so that they can kind of really see what's going on and really be able to dig in analytically into their benefits package.
Yeah, I feel like I know too much now. So if I've kind of helped my own company now, but if I don't share it with other people, it's like sitting on the airplane and knowing the person next to you paid twice as much as you, and you know how you could have saved them money, but if you don't say anything to them. So I'm on this goal to go out there and help other employers. Like, insurance companies have way too much money of our money. I want to put it back into the companies, back into our employees, and helping them, educate them, because it's not that hard. I mean, there's things that we can do. It's just we don't know the right questions to ask and doing things. So I mean, one of the analogies that I use is, I've never bought a boat before. I live in Arizona. We don't have a bunch of lakes and oceans here. So if you sent me to go negotiate a boat, I'm gonna get hosed there. I don't know the questions to ask. I don't know what to push back on. I don't know what to do. So what Trendbreakers is, it's like that friend that you take with you to negotiate, to teach you how to negotiate, empower you to know the information that you need to do. I'm not a broker. I'm not gonna go out there and do that stuff, but I'm gonna be that friend that you take with you to do those things. So that's what I love doing.
So tell me, so are there sort of like some tips and tricks that maybe you wouldn't mind sharing?
I'm very open.
I mean, open enrollment, I mean, I know that we would like to think that it's a long way off. It's really not. So as we're kind of entering into open enrollment, what are maybe, 1 or 2 tips that maybe you could share that you wouldn't mind sharing with our audience?
Yeah, so a few of them is, and so just let this sink in a little bit, that Starbucks spends more money on employee benefits than they do on coffee beans.
Okay.
Just let that sink in a little bit. Starbucks spends more money on employee benefits than they do on coffee beans. Think about how much money and effort and resources they spend on sourcing coffee beans. 3 to 5 years out, information down, people accountable for it. I don't know the inner workings of Starbucks, but my guess is they're not putting that much effort into their employee benefits as well. So the first thing that I would tell people to do is take the dollar amount that your company employees pay for employee benefits and put it on a scale and compare it to other line items in your business. So for example, a company with 500 employees, you're probably spending $4 to $6 million on employee benefits. That's probably more than all of your IT department. That's probably more than some of your raw materials. That's probably more than all of these different things. Yet we just wing it during an open enrollment. Like we just I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just going to wait until there, and then we'll just do the negotiations and move on. We forget about it. That's like your whole IT department, just we'll just wing stuff like that. So you need to put the priority on that. It's the second or third largest expense that your business has, and so you need to put some emphasis on it throughout the year. Get educated on it, and I think just helping educate your CEO, educating your HR department of this is how much money, if Starbucks puts that up there, we spend more money on employee benefits than we do on coffee beans. And so if you as a CFO say, we spend more on employee benefits than, I don't know, IT, right? We got to use that example before. It just helps level set and importance of it. So that's the first thing. Second thing is the broker that you use has the biggest influence on everything that you're going to get. And we have this myth that we think that our brokers show us everything, and they're competent in everything. And it's just like me as a CFO. Like I have my MBA, I have my CPA, I've been a CFO for a while. I've never taken a company public. I have no idea how to take a company public. Like that's not the skill set that I have. But for a broker, we just assume that broker knows all the different aspects of health benefit financing, that they know all the different things. They don't. They specialize in one area. And you may not know that what area they specialize in, but the plans, if you keep seeing the same type of plans year in and year out and stuff like that, it's not because those other plans aren't out there. It's because that's the broker that you're talking with. And so it takes you as the employer to start going out there and looking around and finding different plans that'll be better. So that's number 2. Third one would be you have to align the incentives with your broker.
Okay.
And it's all on you. So if you have more than 100 employees, even more than 50 employees in most states, you are the one that gets to set the rate with your company or with your broker. If you're not setting that, they're setting their own rates, or the insurance carrier is setting the rates for them. It's not so much about the money that they're making, but we don't work harder to get paid less.
Right.
And so if you want your broker, if you assume that your broker's out there trying to do the best thing for you, and yet you're paying that they're getting paid off of commissions and different things, you're de-incentivizing them to get you the best rates. And so just do that right now. Just like call them up and say, how do you get paid? Let's align it. Let's do a fee-only basis. Maybe throw a bonus in there for doing that, and you'll start seeing some differences there. And I guess the last thing that I would say is they make sure that your broker knows that you're out there evaluating other options there. Nothing lights a fire more for a broker than thinking they may lose your business.
Right.
And so if you haven't done an RFP in a while, if you haven't done this kind of stuff, just right now, we're sitting in June, just say, look, we can't do what we did last year. We want to get better benefits. I'm out there looking for stuff. Hopefully you bring your top of your game this year, and you'll start seeing. So that's a quick and easy way to start getting some better options.
A lot of good stuff in there, folks. Yeah. I hope that the folks out there were paying attention, because so just to kind of to summarize it back. So we said sort of level set. Okay, so put it in terms that the people can understand. I mean, you made the comparison of kind of the cost of the IT department, for benefits. Also, making sure that we're seeing some that the brokers know that that you're looking at other brokers. I think competition brings out the best in us.
Yeah.
Lining up incentives. Okay, I think that was another one that you said that I think that's an excellent point there as well. And also just knowing kind of that these brokers are specialists, that very similar to I mean, in accounting we can understand this, right? I mean, for sure. Yeah. I mean, because CPAs are not always, they're not jack of all trades. I mean, I
have my CPA. I pay another CPA to do my taxes, because that's not my specialty. I'm not a tax person.
Yeah,
seriously.
Sure. And so I think all of that stuff is, all of those are great advice there. Yeah, for sure.
I'll just throw in a bonus one here is there's 5 different ways to finance a plan. So the way that you're going to save money is to start diving into those different ways to finance plans. And that's where brokers specialize in these different ways to finance plans. And so it's pre-negotiated plans versus pay-as-you-go plans versus kind of build your own plans. And that's a lot of stuff that I teach in this academy through the podcast or trendbreakers, stuff like that. But if you have never heard of these plans and know these plans, that's step 1. I mean, just starting to learn those things. So.
Yeah, I think all of that is great advice.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something else here, because this is always something that I think is at least for me, as a CFO. I think a lot of the CFOs that I talk to, your benefits package, at least on some level, is used to retain talent and attract new talent, at least on some level.
That's why we have benefits, right? I mean, that's really why we recruit and retain employees.
Yeah, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, because otherwise it's just cost, And so I guess I would ask you this. I mean, what are maybe some of the benefits that you see, and maybe it's health insurance, maybe it's something else, but what are some things that I guess sort of really move the needle right now for employees? What makes employees continue to come back? What attracts new employees? Is there certain benefits that are kind of, that are really doing it for employees right now? Used to be working from home. I don't know if that's still the case after the pandemic.
Well, so yeah, so a couple things in there. So recruit and retain employees. I think medical benefits, ancillary, like short-term disability, long-term, all those things, I think that's par for the course. I mean, that's like having a high school diploma. Like you just have to have them or you're not going to be able to recruit employees. Now, those benefits, I do think retain employees. And so I think there's a lot of people that retire, a lot of people that would quit, but it's like, I need benefits, right? Because the companies end up funding a lot of those benefits. And so I think it does retain them there. But again, as far as recruiting, the number one thing that I'm seeing right now is flexible workforce kind of thing. And so being able to, you talk about working from home. I think the last year and a half, a lot of us have worked from home, and now people are trying to come back to work. And like, what does that look like now? When I'm out there doing a lot of interviews right now, that's what people want to talk about. And it's like, how do I work from 9 to 3 and some hours on the weekend and not be 8 to 5 now? Or I want to be able to travel to Europe in the summertime. I want to do these kind of things that I had the flexibility to do in the past. So how you incorporate those benefits, it's not a cost. I mean, this isn't like a cost like adding those things, but if you're not into that world, you're going to start losing employees. And
Okay. So a flexible work environment, even still, and I think that there's definitely some truth to that. I mean, I kind of threw out there. I guess it's not quite the same. Where it's like the pandemic is sort of forcing me to work from home versus like, hey, I want some flexibility in my hours. I don't want to kind of just be 8 to 5 every day. Those I guess are probably different things.
Yeah, I know that my company, not my company, but a lot of different companies are struggling with the fact of, like, we had to deal with this for 18 months. We didn't have all those water cooler conversations, all those brainstorming sessions and stuff like that we had in the past. And so it's like, how do we bring people back to do that? But on the flip side, I think, and so I'll just tell a little story. So when my kids, the last day of school, my wife does like this little activity for them. I've never participated in the activity. She does squirt guns, she does activities, she throws stuff at them just to celebrate the last day of school. Well, I got to participate in this year. I got to like be part of those side conversations with my kids during the day that I haven't had that opportunity. So I don't want to give that up, right? And so companies are trying to like balance those things, and it's tough. And I don't think anybody's really solved that yet. And companies are struggling with productivity and having them be able to monitor employees, but yet give them flexibility.
That's interesting that you say that. I think that a lot of companies worry about kind of monitoring employees and that kind of stuff. I remember I did a podcast with somebody who had actually been a remote manager for several years, before the pandemic. And one of the things that he said that I think was pretty striking is that for him, the good employees were going to work whether there was somebody watching them or not. They were going to, and you would figure out really quickly who was going to do it, who's going to work for you and who wasn't.
Well, I think it's not. I think there's an issue with actual employees being productive. I think as a leadership, as a management style, the way we've managed for so many years is watching people. Oh, he's in the office. They must be working. We don't know if they're playing solitaire or whatever they're doing. Or Johnny's like staying late. Well, maybe they're staying late because they're so inefficient that they have to stay late. Or maybe they were like playing solitaire all late, but they were the ones that got the kudos. Oh, Johnny stays here until 7 o'clock every night and does stuff. And so we don't know how to manage. A lot of us don't know how to manage a remote workforce where we can't see them if they're staying late or do these things. So we have to readjust.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of the, kind of going back to benefits, one of the things that I think has just really intrigued me more recently is a lot of the surveys that I see on employee benefits. The ones that seem to sort of really resonate with employees seem to be the ones that are kind of in their face, I guess, for lack of a better term. So, I care about my health insurance because my health insurance, like, I am well aware of what my health insurance is every time I go to the doctor, and and I have to pay for something out of it, because I go to the pharmacy and I have a copay. Like, I'm well aware of my copay. But like, and same thing with like my retirement plan, because that kind of gets beaten into our heads, through, media, and just there's newspaper articles everywhere and things about the importance of saving for retirement. Is that the reason why employees seem to care so much about those benefits and why health insurance is so important? Is it because of that? Is it because it's in your face? It's like that you're well aware of it, and maybe the other benefits, maybe we care less about those because they're just not as a part of us.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, partly. I still think there's a lot of people in their 20s that have never used health insurance and don't really understand how it works. And if the company pays a lot of their costs, they're like, so we get a lot of calls in HR of like, how does this work again? Like, what is this stuff? I mean, as parents, sometimes our kids growing up, like, what's a copay? What's a deductible? What are these kind of? Because I mean, if we've lived this life for a long time, like if we step aside, it's so complicated, right? I mean, what is this like copay, deductible, co-insurance, out-of-pocket max, like all these like terms? It's just really complicated for a lot of people. So I think that brings it up. Some of the benefits I don't think that get a lot of media attention, stuff like that, is like the disability, like short-term disability and long-term disability and stuff like that can be really important for people that land on those. It's just rare. I mean that you got 500 employees and you may only have one that ends up using long-term disability. It's super important to them, but the rest of them don't really care about it because they're just not worried about using it.
Yeah. So it's just they're not real concerned with it, so they just kind of
I think it's funny. Like some of the ones that get a lot of attention. I was talking about bereavement leave I was talking about, and arguing like who qualifies it for and stuff like that. And somebody put on there like, I think we should get it for pets, and I'm like, come on, like really, And then this lady like wrote on there. She says, you have to understand, like, I don't have a spouse, I don't have kids, I don't have like stuff like that. Like that's part of my family, and I feel like, she didn't use the word discriminated against, but I'm not as validated enough for like something that's something for me. I'm like, it's like a lot of times we look at benefits under our own lenses, of like our life that we live and the different things that we live. And so I think it's one of the challenges for CFOs and HR professionals is that we look at our salary levels. And so we may look at a $2,000 deductible and like, it's painful and stuff like that. But $2,000 could be somebody's monthly salary.
Right.
And so I've seen CFOs that take it as a percentage and say, okay, well, that's, 10, 15% of their salary. We'll take 10 to 15% of your own salary and then use that as your deductible. And so, I mean, maybe that's a $15,000 to $30,000 deductible for you. Like, how does that feel like having a $30,000 deductible?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like the same thing, can help level set those conversations.
So kind of to that point, is there something to be gained by, I guess kind of helping employees sort of better see kind of what they have? Because I think that, and that's been another thing that has come through on some of the surveys and some of the articles that I've been reading is talking about like, that a lot of employees they don't understand the benefits package that they have. It's like they don't even know what they got. It's like, and I don't mean, I mean something beyond like the open enrollment meeting. I know that everybody has to go to the open enrollment meeting, fine. But like something beyond that, is there anything CFOs can do to really sort of help facilitate better understanding of the benefits package?
I know over the last like 10 to 15 years, a lot of people, HSAs have been gotten really popular, right? Let's promote consumerism. Let's give them the money. They get to keep the money, stuff like that. Maybe they'll make better decisions with it. But we also have to recognize that it's really hard to be a consumer within the healthcare system. And so, for example, you get sick. I don't know the prices of the hospital. I don't know the price of the urgent care. I don't know the prices. Like, we all wait for that bill to show up later for it. And so sometimes it's hard to be a consumer in there. I would push back on CFOs and HR professionals right now and say, do you even understand how your benefits plans work? I mean, you may understand it as an employee, but I was just talking about, like the 5 ways to finance a plan. Do you know those 5 ways to finance a plan? Can you talk about the ways to do different things? And so I think we all need to up our game on the education level, and I think there's a lot to learn from it, whether intentionally or not. I do think it's intentionally. I think they keep us in the dark, and then we just keep signing checks over them. You know?
Yeah. So kind of getting back to the education piece. So we have you have Employee Benefits Academy. Can you talk maybe a little bit more about that? I mean, you've kind of touched on it a little bit throughout our conversation today. If people want to know more about it, how do they sign up? What does that look like?
Yeah, so the Employee Benefits Academy has been this dream of mine to bring employers together during the open enrollment season. And so you think about, the plan is during August through October, to take 4 or 5 weeks and just talk about the education. Let's up the game for everybody, empower them on the 5 ways to fund a plans, on a broker stuff, do audits of their broker, like figure out all that stuff. But then the last half is being more of an advisory thing of like working together. And so you're going through your renewal right now. Well, let's talk about it together. Here's the questions to ask. Here's 5 to 10 other employers that we're going to work on that stuff together, because you can save a lot of money. So I'll just give an example from last year. So I was working with a company. They were paying $6 million in premiums. That's during COVID. They're getting ready they got a 2% rate increase. And everybody's like, oh, it's 2%. It's COVID right now. Who cares? Let's like move on. I'm like, just stop. Just hold on. Let's just ask a couple questions first. Again, think of like that friend that's with you at the buying the boat, right?
Right.
And so I said, well, what are your claims been? And so they didn't even know like what their claims had been. So they asked their broker, came back $3.4 million worth of claims on a $6 million premium.
Okay.
And I was like, my jaw dropped. I'm like, $2.6 million that insurance carrier had kept. Now they got to have admin and profit and stuff like that, but they kept $2.6 million of your money, and they had the audacity to give you a 2% increase. I'm like, throw them out of your office and tell them to come back later. And it just empowered them, and they had the information now, and we went back a couple of years and stuff like that. Well, they came back with like a 10 to 15% rate decrease on the second round, ended up getting $500,000 savings that they reinvested back in a 401k, back into the company, just because they knew the questions to ask and they had people that could back them up on it. There's power in coming together as CFOs and working together and helping. So that's my hope with the Academy this year, is to do that for many, many other companies. So I'm trying to get to 1,000, right? Trying to get to 1,000 companies do the same thing.
So when is the next one, if you don't mind me asking?
So it starts August 15th. So if they just want to reach out to me. So I'm on LinkedIn, Steve Watson, CPA on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me. Trendbreakers.com is the website that I have. They can reach out there as well, and we can talk a little bit more about it.
So trendbreakers.com, folks, for those of you out there that are interested in doing that, I think it's a great idea. One thing that I would be remiss if I did not ask you about is you are like a podcast guru, my friend. I mean, you put out.
I'm just a rookie still.
Seriously, folks that are out there in accountable land. I mean, Steve has 3 great podcasts. So would you mind just telling folks about the podcasts that you have out there?
Yeah, I mean, really short stories. Last year, I've always wanted to do a podcast, and so I started one called Trendbreakers. I did 3 episodes a week, and I talked to all the people that are like me, that I want to talk to. So HR people, finance people, and benefits people are the 3 hats that I wear. And so it was like this, hodgepodge, all these different things. So this year, I ended up splitting it into 3 different podcasts. So on Mondays, Trendbreakers comes out. It's all about employee benefits. Anything you want to learn, geek out. It's my own personal journey and me interviewing people and asking about it. So that's on Mondays. Wednesday is the My HR Journey podcast, where I'm out interviewing HR professionals, talking about their stories of how they got into HR and why they're passionate about it. And then on Fridays is the one where I met David, had you come on my show. So my CFO Journey comes out on Fridays, and it's all about CFOs. And so people listening to this stuff, I'd love to hear your story, why you got into finance, some of the highlights of your career, what are you passionate about with the field. It's all to give back to people that are starting out in the career of finance. They look at us and say, look, you guys are CFO. Like, how did you get there?
Right.
And I couldn't find a podcast that would tell those stories, and so I wanted to get out there and do it. And I've had a lot of fun meeting a lot of good people out there, like David. So
thank you, Steve. And I have to tell you, seriously, folks, all 3 podcasts are great. They really are. And I had the pleasure on being on one of Steve's podcasts. Is how people get into this kind of ever expanding, ever changing profession, this very odd profession that we have all chosen. It has, is definitely interesting. And I think, again, if you're really just trying to kind of just better educate yourself on employee benefits, I think, listening to the podcast, I think is a great way to go about it. Or, folks, give the Employee Benefits Academy a chance here, guys. I mean, this is a great opportunity to come together with other CFOs that are facing the same things you are. I mean, this is, we
what's
all
always
do
surprising
this.
to me is like why we don't reach out more. And so across the street, there's a hotel. I have my social work company. Like, why don't we collaborate on that stuff? Like, we're not competitors.
Right.
We're both looking for employees. We're both out negotiating. So let's work together and let's replicate the good things from each other.
I think that is a great message. So, well, Steve, thank you so much for being on the show this week. I think that this is just a lot of really great stuff, really great information. If folks would like to get a hold of you, trendbreakers.com, and then did you want to give them an email address?
Yeah, Steve Watson, CPA on LinkedIn is really easy to meet me. Or Steve W at trendbreakers.com is my email address. You can reach out to me there and love to interact with anybody.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Steve, for being on the show this week. I greatly appreciate it. This is great.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Accountable. Be sure to subscribe for more interviews and insights from today's business leaders. David Peters is a registered representative offering securities through Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Carroll Financial Associates, a registered investment advisor. Peters Tax Preparation, David Peters Financial, Carroll Financial, and Cetera Advisor Networks are not affiliated. He is located at 1657 West Broad Street, Unit 5, Richmond, Virginia, 23220, and can be reached at 804-332-1373. The views depicted in this material are for information purposes only and not necessarily those of Cetera. They should not be considered specific advice or recommendations for any individual.